Well, good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to the Raymond Hall Show. I am your host, Raymond Hall, and we are here in beautiful Southern California. It has been a little bit warmer than usual, but we are still so thankful to be here. We want to reach out to all of the persons that's been affected by these fires and by the heat and that kind of thing. We have a guest with us, Director of Activities for the Southern California Lay, Jackie DuPont Walker. Jackie, are you there?
I am. How are you, Mr. Hall?
I am doing fine. And thank you so very much to come and talk to us again. She is so informative about a number of things, and the church is ground zero for social action, and that's where she does a lot of the work that spreads out from there into the community. Today we're going to be talking about voting, and we are going to be talking in depth about voting, because at one point we thought that this was a very vertical situation that we were looking at, what happened in 2016. And we're coming to find out that it's not vertical at all. This thing is something that we all should pay attention to. And Director of Southern California Lay Activities, Jackie DuPont Walker, is something that she has been working with and developing techniques and helping people to develop techniques to address this issue for a long time. So, Jackie, would you talk to us about we're going to get to a number of things, but talk to us about the importance of this election.
Well, but first, let me just share with everyone that all of us have something we're called to do. And for most of us, once we realize what that calling is something we can't not do. And what I realize I'm called to do is social action, moving towards social justice. And so it is my honor and pleasure to serve as the Director of Social Action for the AME Church International. And so with that in mind, we have kicked off the 2018 midterm election voter outreach, which includes education, mobilization, and registration.
Okay.
I think we spent a lot of time talking about registration, and we know that there are people who are eligible to vote every year because they get older. We're not sure how many people know that here in California, you can actually register at 16 and 17. They put you in a database, and when you turn 18, they send you out your congratulatory letter. So you don't have to wait until you're 18, and that's why people who are having any kinds of graduations, in addition to buying the balloons and the stuffed animals and the bouquets, one should make sure that somebody completes their voter registration card. So a high school student at 10th, 11th, or 12th grade can complete a voter registration process and be in queue for when they turn 18. Extremely important. On our website, a number of other websites, you can go online and register. So as much as I love taking the cards and going around and finding people, you can actually register online from anywhere in the United States. You will get back to validation or not, but you can actually do that. There's a National Voter Registration Day, and it is just so important to remember that there are millions of people who are registered and never cast a vote. And so in addition to the new voters, we need to reach those people so they know it can make a difference, that their vote can make a difference.
Okay.
I think we have an example from what happened in Alabama, where people actually went back to the door-to-door knocking. What happened in Pennsylvania, in western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area, where people actually went back door-to-door knocking. And so it's a matter of people actually not just seeing a mailer that comes to your mailbox, or seeing you on TV, or hearing you on radio, or even going to a rally and seeing you up on the stage. It's a candidate and their representatives coming to your door where you have an opportunity to talk to them. So voter registration is extremely important. To find the deadline for our area for voter registration AMEV, like voter, -alert.org. And I'll say this several times, AMEV dash or hyphen alert, ALERT.org.
Okay.
Is a place to find almost anything you need to find to work on mobilizing voters. We also want to make sure that we are able to give information to those people who've been in contact with the criminal justice system. Restoration of voting rights after felony conviction is different in every state. And so it's important to know what the rights are. In some places, there are few states where you never lose your right to vote. But in most, there's conditions under which the right to vote is lost and can be restored. In California, it's lost until the completion of sentence, parole or probation. And it's supposed to be automatic restoration. Most people don't know that it's automatically restored. Most people don't know that there's some misdemeanors that you don't lose your right. People just think it's gone. So it's very, very important to make sure people know about the restoration and that they can get involved. And every state has its own criteria. And again, at AMEV-alert.org, there's a chart you can go to in the toolkit and click, no matter what state it is, and find out what the rights are in those states.
Okay.
It is actually Maine and Vermont where you never lose the right to vote.
Oh, wow.
But those are the only two states in the United States where that is the case.
Okay.
It's also important for people involved in churches who say this is partisan to remember there are do's and don'ts, and there are many things that you can do as a church to educate, mobilize voters. And most people don't understand partisan means Democrat versus Republican versus Independent versus Green versus any other party. That's partisan. Urging people to get involved in political activities is not partisan activity.
Okay.
And so in the toolkit that you can find at AMEV-alert.org, page 31, do's and don'ts on political activities for churches and or pastors. Let me give an example most people don't know, but it's very, very interesting.
Okay.
Do rent out church facilities. Do rent out church facilities, kitchens, athletic facilities, board and conference rooms for political activities. Regular rates must apply. So if the church rents its facilities out for weddings and anniversaries, you can rent facilities out for political activities.
Wow.
Most people do not know that.
I didn't know that myself.
Yeah, there's another one. It says, publish political ads as long as the regular rate is applied. So if, in fact, many of our Catholic churches have ads in their bulletins and newsletters, yes, they can accept the political ads. They don't have to have everybody who's running for that office. It's an opportunity that's available to everyone, so that's what they can do. Do publish news stories about campaigns. That's a part of voter registration.
Okay.
And voter education.
Okay.
Okay. Now, some churches make their membership rolls available to people. So let's say Xerox comes to town and say, we will buy your membership roll. In exchange for that, we will provide printing service to your church for the next 5 years. That church can sell its membership list at a regular rate and do that. You can also do that for campaigns. So there's so much you can do. We spend a lot of time talking about what we can't do. There's so much that we can do as faith bodies. And on page 31 and 32 of the toolkit that you will find at AMEV-alert.org,
okay,
you will find out that you can do that. Most of us know you can use church vans for transportation, but you don't use the van to advertise for a particular candidate.
Right.
But you can use it for going to the poll. There is so much we can do.
Okay.
We can put information about voting in our bulletins, that we should do that. The toolkit even tells you how to organize and do coalitions outside of the church, where you might bring together NAACP and SCLC and Urban League and 24th Street Block Club and and a number of other groups all come together in an area and blanket that area to make sure the people in that neighborhood go to the polls. But the one thing I would urge, every one of us should identify 10 people, and those 10 people make sure they are currently registered, that they know the deadlines for applying for an absentee ballot, if that's what they want to do. They know election day, and that they get to the polls. It is very disturbing that at our last election, there were 150,000 names in Los Angeles County
right.
that was removed from the rolls.
Right.
And I still don't have an adequate explanation. So I would say to everybody, when you're talking to someone, they say, I'm registered, remind them if they didn't know that happened. And so just say you can actually go to the app for LA County and put in the information they request, name and address, and find out if they are on the roll. If they're not on the roll, that same app, you can register right there. So we're talking to people. Sometimes they're embarrassed to let us know that they're not registered or may have lapsed. Just say, you know what, there was this big snafu, so why don't we just make sure you register?
Okay.
It really gives people a window to go out, but we must ensure that we have 100% voter turnout for the election on November 6th. And we want to make sure they're informed. There are people running for county boards of supervisors in some counties. Some people, we know we have the statewide offices here in California, the governor.
Right.
We know that every member of Congress is running for re-election, every single one. And we know we have at least one U.S. senator who's running for re-election here, or election here. And so at least one U.S. Senate seat is open here in the state of California. But every congressional person is up. So we need to be informed about who's running and not just what's put on a mailer or in a little sound bite, somebody walking through your church for 2 minutes.
Right.
And that kind of voter education you should be able to find on our website. We're going to start putting information on so people will know the questions to ask. We can't cover the whole country with every detail, but it's important for people to take the framework and use it to educate, mobilize, and register people so that November 6th we'll be back to a time when pride was expressed in voting.
Absolutely.
There were long lines because people had to cast their vote. There's so much critical out here now, the climate, the very environment. Anyone suffering in this heat now knows how much attention we need to pay. The quality of our water and infrastructure is extremely important.
Correct.
The quality of our air. Just being able to survive on limited income. The protections that need to be put in place. I could go on and on and on about the things that are legislated at every level of government. It's extremely important for people to not think somebody else can do it for you.
Correct. And one of the things that's vital is that we have to get involved in order to be involved.
Yes.
It's amazing to me. I, by just glance, saw all of these African Americans at the White House and turned the volume up and to find that they were preachers. And there was a conversation that was talking about the impact, supposedly, that these preachers had. And I'm going that this just cannot be. This we must not let our education be through television. Our education needs to be through our neighbor and through the very things that Jackie is talking about. And that's why I'm so elated that you took my call and that you came to the show and is giving us all of this information. AMEV-alert is something that everybody should imprint in their things to do, bucket list, whatever it is that you want, .org. Whatever that you want to do. That 10 person that she's talking about is critical.
And let me say something about what was obviously promoted so that we would all turn our attention. I don't know, did not recognize anyone sitting around that table.
Right.
And all of us, no matter how young we are, have been advised that you don't take any information as truth and gospel without doing research.
Correct.
So whatever was being said, we tend to trust people we know, and that's okay. But surely if it's somebody you don't know, taking what they say as gospel and truth would be very, very dangerous and ill-advised.
Correct.
But number two, from the faith perspective, I thank God that each one of us has a calling.
Yes.
And I am a PK.
Okay.
So I'll say to anyone, the first man I fell in love with was a preacher. That was my daddy.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is they're not without clay feet. And so if there are some who have answered the call to preach but have lost their way, we don't need to follow them.
Okay.
And so we need to actually have discernment about what someone says and does. You could listen to some of those statements, and it was pretty much like we find scripturally pandering to the crowd. Pandering to the crowd. And so it was there's no way that some of what was said was true at all.
Right.
And so I think hopefully that what we saw yesterday will propel us, knowing that there's so much desperation to continue down this path of disenfranchising people and making a larger and larger gap between the haves and have-nots a reality.
Yes.
That it would get us excited enough to identify our 10 people and be locked at the hip with them until November 6th, take a 24-hour break, and start again in order to ensure the U.S. Census count is correct.
Okay.
And so we have November 6th. We only get to pause for 24 hours before we should be back on the case, ensuring that the 2020 census does not have a serious undercount in our neighborhood. But for now, we need to send the right people to Washington. So we don't have to spend time looking at television to see what somebody did that was crazy.
Yes.
If the right people who understand, committed, and are called to do this are there, we can just be there to support and give information.
Yes.
Right now, you almost can't live your life for wondering what next.
That's correct.
And we need to bring those people home, let them do something else.
Yes. Yes. Now, one of the other things that I want to mention, what's being done to assure that the vote is being counted? Has Los Angeles County moved to make sure that every vote that is being recorded as it was cast? Both you and I saw the thing about the 150,000 that just disappeared off the rolls. And the reason they gave did not make any sense, that the software developer, his product was not compatible with the actual machine language or something that was used. It just didn't make any sense, and it dropped 150,000 people. They say, okay, that will never happen again, but what next? If we didn't know about that, what next? What is there any kind of conversation that's being had to say, we want to make sure we test these machines to make sure that they're working properly before we use them?
Well, two different things there, Brother Hall. The names drop had nothing to do with the machines, because the names are manual identified, as you know, from the book.
Right.
And so there is a investigation into what happened, and there's to be another report. There was an interim report, and then another report regarding what the problem was and how, as you say, that will never happen again.
Okay.
I'm assured that the supervisors are looking at what other things can happen, like the report that in 2016, in some sections of the U.S., the machines were preloaded by the vendor because somebody paid them. So all of those are things that, in order to have a vote election with integrity, have to be looked at. But there's also the human element. There are opportunities for us to work at the polls. So when we know things are egregious, we can actually be a part of solving the problem.
Okay.
There's an opportunity to go to the Board of Supervisors when we see this on the agenda to hear and understand. We can even tune in by phone, hear and understand the questions that are being asked and the solutions that are being set in place around the election. There's also the opportunity to actually observe the county, and we can call the county registrar and see how that happens.
Okay.
There are ways for the public to be involved, and they're going to alternatives because the public has walked away from those levels of involvement. So we can encourage people to volunteer, to be an inspector, a poll checker, a poll worker, and to be a part of everything that leads up to the elections that are being administered by L.A. County. But call your county supervisor's office, ask them what's happening, how will we ensure it's not going to happen again, because some people waited, some people put provisional ballots in, but still some others walked away and never voted.
Wow.
We need those votes in 2018. We absolutely need those votes in 2018.
Okay.
And so we need to be sure that by November 6th, everybody who's eligible to vote has cast their vote.
Okay.
By 8 p.m. on November 6th, we need to be sure. And I know there are many groups that are willing to come out and do voter registration. We are to come out and have conversations and dialogues. We are. There's some sororities and fraternities that are working to try to do different things, and we will definitely connect people with those. But what's important is we need to make this the small talk.
Okay.
You know, somebody comes up to do business. Before we do anything, are you registered to vote? But make sure, make that voter registration app on your phone something you use as frequently as the contact list.
Okay. Okay. Now, the app is
evolved in LA Vote.
Okay.
You can actually find the national link on AMEV Alert, but for those in LA County and the listening audience, LA Vote, which is the county's website, has an app on it also. So you can do either one, amev-alert.org or LA Vote.
Okay. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure, because we are going to commit so much time with this show to make sure until election time for the election that we talk about voting on this show.
Thank you.
From now to then.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are quite welcome. Thank you. We would like for each community to follow some of the suggestions. Go to the web, to the amev-alert.org. Browse through it. There's a thing that I call with God's Word, I camp out in certain places. Sometimes I read God's Word and sometimes I just camp out in God's places. So if you see that there's an area on this page at the amev-alert.org that gives you particular interest more than other, camp out there. It may be telling you how to organize just your building, just your block, just your neighbors. When have you last had, I'm not into tea parties, but when have you last had a tea party or coffee, shared a cup of coffee with a neighbor just to talk about voting? Look, exactly. What past president, and I don't want to get specific, but health care is something that everyone needs. You all know my story, so I won't get to it. Everyone needs health care. Now, to have your health care unraveled without your consideration because of a vote should say, I need to get up and vote.
Thank you.
Okay? Look at your children. Do you need to vote? Look at your neighbor. Do you need to vote? Look at the elders around you. Do you need to vote?
You calling the roll. And that's
right.
So important.
Do you look at the job that you have? Do I need to vote? Find a reason to get up and vote.
And if you have a problem, call us. We have connection to the Sentencing Project for those who believe they should restore their rights, and it hasn't happened. We have connection to NAACP, Legal Defense Fund, as well as the National Lawyers Committee. and they're there to troubleshoot when people believe they're being unfairly denied the right to vote.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jackie, give us a number where they can call. Give them a number where they can call. Unfortunately, I don't have it streaming, and maybe we can straighten it out before the end of the show, or I'll make sure next week or the next time you have a moment to come aboard, I will have that information to where it's running.
They can call 213-747-1188.
Okay.
And they will have to leave a message, but they leave a message at extension 1.
Okay.
213-747-1188, extension 1.
Okay. Now, talk to us about one other thing you mentioned about the robocalls. Where does it play, and how is that important?
Well, as we have expanded our horizons and we go to high technology, we have left behind people who by choice or because they don't have access are not on the internet. Mm-hmm. And so robocall is a system where you can program a message in, and then you program numbers. Sometimes they just program random numbers, and that message is actually conveyed to a number when someone answers. You've probably gotten some at home.
Yes.
Where they pause a moment and they say, hello, this is. Well, the robocall is a way that we can actually reach people who we don't see to remind them that something is important. We can also go back to the phone bank, where I have my list, and I call my list to make sure they know what's important, when they're supposed to show up, and what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
So whether it's the official robocall mechanism that's more automatic, or the phone bank where people call and check on you, we have to reinitiate that to make sure that we can reach everybody. So we have to do the phone. And I'll tell you, my favorite place to carry messages like this are the barbershop and the beauty salon.
Okay.
And then at the nail shop. That's where we solve all the world's problems. Everybody sitting in the barbershop and beauty salon knows how to solve every problem.
Okay.
At least in my barbershop and beauty salon, they do.
That's about the way it goes. Okay.
And so that's a place to sit and have these conversations. That's where you would hear some of the caution, some of the rumors, some of the things that aren't true that keep people from voting. Mm-hmm. That's where you would hear it, and also find a place that people know, you know what, I might not be able to explain it, but will you come and explain to the people I know who think like me?
Okay.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to have these trusted voices out and about.
Okay.
And so this is that time, and so we're open if you want us to come and talk to a group. Important. If you live in a building and that building is not a voting location, get someone to come in and help people get absentee ballots, especially if they're elders and might not get out.
Yes.
Extremely important. And then go back close to election day, be sure they return them.
Yes.
Not that they get them, but that they complete them and return them.
Yes.
I have what we call ballot parties. Mm-hmm. And at the ballot party, the seniors come with their ballots, and we discuss what's on there. Mm-hmm. We explain what it looks like it's saying versus what it's saying. Mm-hmm. And then in the end, they can make their own choices and informed choices. And my challenge to them is, now that you understand what the ballot is saying, then this is the time you talk to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and tell them, this is what you need to know about this ballot.
Yes.
And this is when we want to tell them something to get them to do it, we know how to do it, don't we?
That's true.
And this is that important.
This is
when
that important.
Tell them, I want you to show up for Grandma and Grandpa's birthday, and I don't want no excuses. We know how to get our kids to do what they need to do.
That's correct.
This is one of those times we need to let no excuse.
Okay.
No excuse to be good enough not to vote.
Okay. And you said something that was of importance, too, when you said that here in California, when someone finishes their commitment to the justice system, they're able to vote. Now,
Again. That's if they lost. If they were convicted of a misdemeanor, they may not have lost their right, but some people think just because they were convicted and served time that they lost their right to vote. So they need to confirm whether they even lost their right to vote.
Now, One of the points that I want to make, we know that substantial money has, because housing here in Los Angeles has risen to the level that some call it a national disgrace. I'm with those, but it's a very complex situation here, from rents going through the roof to a whole number of issues. But it's an issue. Two things: the voting when it comes to persons without housing permanency, and those persons that are returning to the community. They have so many other things to do that voting may not seem like something that's the most important thing for them to do. Let's take another look at this thing.
That's right. Number one, if you're homeless, you can establish that you are homeless and you still are allowed to vote as long as you have the voter ID.
Okay.
And most of the government-issued voter ID does have a location. There are places that are provided for P.O. boxes and others. So we actually go out to register people who are homeless, and most have found an address that they receive their SSI check or Social Security check or something at. So that is extremely important. When someone is moving in, they need to be sure about the deadline.
Okay.
30 days before the election, they can still register to vote, but it's important for them to get registered to vote. It's even if they have to drive all the way out to Norwalk to do it manually, they need to get registered to vote. So it's important to let people know, just as when you're moving into an apartment and they hand you the lease and they hand you the key and they hand you the genie for your car, they need to hand you a voter registration card to make sure that you're registered at that new address.
Wow. Okay. Those are the kind of innovative things that I'm speaking about. And all of these places where persons are coming into the community, the temporary housing facilities for the persons returning to the community. These places, if you have a loved one there, or if it's in your community, ask someone who's the director or someone who operates that facility, can you put voter registration? I don't even know if it's legal, but ask the question.
Oh, absolutely. It can go anywhere. Voter registration cards can be put in any place that people allow it to be.
Okay. All right. So we're going to, Jackie, thank you so very much. We just about ran out of time.
I look forward to coming back frequently before the election.
Okay. Well, now we're going, you know me, we're going to take you up on that, because we are going to be talking about voting from now until Election Day. Those persons that's celebrating, she told you, 16, 17, you can register. So 18, one of the things to expect in the mail, expect that mail to come that says, hey, welcome to the block of voters here on your block. So thank you.
Even before you vote, you can encourage those people in your life who are voter age. You can get them to go, just like you try to get them to take you to Disneyland. And those other places, you can absolutely say, let's go to the polls.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you so very much again.
Thank you so much. And you're listening us. We look forward to seeing everybody voting.
Okay. And we'll be talking with you again next week on a different aspect of voting here on the Raymond Hall Show.
All right.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break because we only have a few minutes. And when we come back, we're going to talk to you about Mr. T.O. McGee. We'll be back in 15 seconds. And we are back. Thank you again for joining us here at the Raymond Hall Show. We have instituted the meritorious portion of a senior salute. We've incorporated it into the Raymond Hall Show. And we have mentioned several veterans. Today, we're going to give spotlight to Mr. T.O. McGee. Veteran T.O. McGee was 80 years old when he passed. His birthday was coming this December. Mr. McGee was a husband for 54 years and father of 3. He was a member of the United States Air Force from December 1957 to August of 1960. Airman second class, discharged Civil Engineer Squadron number 8007, discharged from March Air Force Base here in Riverside, California, and he served in the Korean conflict. He was awarded the Good Conduct Medal in the Air Force Accommodation. After discharge, he graduated from Compton College with a AAA degree. He opened his own small business. He was a small business person, and he opened service stations where he employed local residents, and he taught them the business of being a mechanic and a customer service person. Mr. McGee held joint ownership in a beauty salon, and that's where his wife had her passion, and they did it so they could promote his wife's desire to own and operate a local beauty salon where women locally could have full beauty services in the community, teaching the young generation how to provide professional services in both businesses. As a bus driver in the city of Compton, Mr. McGee was known for his encouraging and motivating greetings to those who would board his bus over the course of his tenure there as a driver. Mr. McGee had a love for country and community, and at one point running for mayor of Compton, California. To the family of Mr. T.O. McGee. Mr. McGee, for your service to nation and community, we the community who are benefactors of your service bestow a meritorious Senior Salute Award to you. This award would be given to your sister, Mrs. Rose Gripper of Grant AME Church, for your service to the nation, for your service to community. We thank you. Here at the Raymond Hall Show, service is a different conversation. Our show today has been on voting, and voting is a different conversation. How many people gave service, and that service included their lives, so you would have an opportunity to vote? How many people stood in places in Korea and Vietnam, World War I, World War II, stood main side, stood coast side, so you would be able to have liberties here in the mainland? It's through the service that's found in the community that gives the nation her service. Have service in your life. This is the Raymond Hall Show. My name is Raymond Hall. And as always, we thank God for each and every one of you. Continue to have service. We'll talk to you next week. Good night.